Welcome, everyone, to episode 39 of White Horse Live, coming to you from White Horse Black Mountain, hosted as always by Bob Hinkle and co-produced by White Horse Black Mountain and Rad House Studio. Tonight we welcome back pianist Dr. Daniel Weiser and cellist Franklin Keel for the second in a special three-part series showcasing the cello and piano works of Beethoven in celebration of the 250th anniversary of his birth. We're very glad to be open again to the public. However, seating at White Horse is very limited due to ongoing COVID safety recommendations. So we'll continue to offer these programs as live online streams. Now more than ever, our artists rely on your tips. They can't hear your applause if you're watching us at home. Your tips are the way to show your appreciation for them. The best way to do that is to visit whitehorselive.tips from your web browser. That's whitehorselive.tips, not .com, not tips.com, just whitehorselive.tips. And we'll display the tip jar address from time to time during the show, as we are now. Thank you for helping make this series a success. We're grateful for your help in spreading the word. Please keep sharing the event notices, hosting those live watch parties, and telling all your friends. Now here's your host, Bob Hinkle.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Happy to have you at White Horse Live. A lot of Beethoven tonight, so we're going to start with something that's not. When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, then the clouds roll away. Well, if you don't believe that music has power, just stay right here with us for just about an hour. Oh, these two guys on the stage are going to lift you up. They'll loosen up your tightening. They will fill your cup. When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, then the clouds roll away. The clouds roll away. The clouds, they roll away. Yeah. All right. Beethoven, you can go back to sleep now. AmiciMusic means music between friends. The company has as a part of its mission to bring world-class music to places where it isn't usually heard, like White Horse Black Mountain, where they sold and repaired cars 60 years ago. It's allowed White Horse to become not just a member of the Carburetor Hall of Fame, we've also been inducted into the Chamber Music and Heritonic Secret Society. You know their motto, a little buckle, do you? Sorry. For 11 years now, founder and artistic director Dr. Daniel Weiser has brought White Horse fantastic music. Tonight's program is the middle portion of an incredible three-night Beethoven extravaganza. Between last Thursday night, tonight, and tomorrow, Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, we'll feature Dr. Weiser on piano and the extraordinary Franklin Keel on cello. During this, our first and hopefully last COVID Beethoven Festival, we're hearing his complete works for cello and piano. We have notified the Guinness Book of Records, as I'm pretty sure that this will be the first time in the history of the world that this much Beethoven on piano and cello has been played during a pandemic with an open bar in a former Chevrolet dealership. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, guinea pigs and goldfish, and all the other couch sitters who are out there, please, a warm virtual White Horse Live round of applause for the man of few words, Dr. Daniel Weiser.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you to Bob. Thank you to our audience, our small audience that is here for making that, for giving us your love from there. Thanks also to Rebecca with Rad House Studios for all they've done to set up this wonderful live stream. Thank you to Franklin Keel for partaking in this crazy journey through all of the cello piano music by Ludwig van Beethoven that we really wanted to try out since it is his 250th birthday coming up next month. I've been playing all sorts of Beethoven, and if you enjoy what you're hearing here. Next month at AmiciMusic.org, I won't be here at the White Horse. I will be doing all of the Beethoven violin sonatas with Tim Schwartz, my good friend. So you'll find out about those if you check out AmiciMusic.org. But tonight we're doing part 2 of the cello works. Part 1, we played both the first and second sonatas that Beethoven wrote in his early period in 1796 with the sort of more classical style, but Beethoven putting his own imprint already, making the pieces longer and longer, stretching things out. And again, as I mentioned, he was the first to really write sonatas for the cello and piano. Mozart and Haydn hadn't thought of the cello as a melodic instrument. It was more of an accompanying instrument. They thought of the violin as a solo instrument. But Beethoven gave the cello a chance in that first concert, although we heard that the piano was still pretty overpowering. And in fact, he wrote those as sonatas for piano and cello, not for cello and piano. He was sure to put himself first. But in tonight's concert, we're going to finish with the third sonata. That's the most often performed, his A major sonata, beautiful piece, and that's probably the most equal of the sonatas. And in fact, he allows the cello to even start that piece all by himself, which was kind of a nice thing that Beethoven did. But before we get to that epic work, which he writes in 1808, in the middle of his most heroic phase, as we call it, we're going to start off with 2 works that are not often performed. These are variations on 2 different Mozart melodies from Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. And Beethoven loved Mozart, and in fact, he had traveled to Vienna in 1787 with the plan to meet Mozart and hopefully have Mozart become his teacher. There's some debate about whether they actually did meet, but the story has come down from Beethoven's first biographer, Anton Schindler, that he did go to Mozart's home and began to play for him. First, he began to play one of Mozart's own concertos, and Mozart said to him supposedly, "Oh, anybody can play that. Play something of your own." At which point Beethoven ripped into one of his own sort of improvisations that he was known for, his own sort of works. Mozart was astounded and supposedly ran into the other room to get his wife Constanza and supposedly said, "Stanzi, Stanzi, come back and listen. We must watch out for this boy. One day he will give the world something to talk about." And sadly, and he again supposedly agreed to take Beethoven on as a student, but just a few days later, Beethoven found out that his mother back in Bonn was very sick. And in fact, she would die as soon after he got back to Bonn. And Beethoven was not able to get back to Vienna until 1792, at which point Mozart had died at the end of 1791 at the tender age of 35. So sadly, they never got to work together. But Beethoven always admired Mozart's style, and especially his opera, The Magic Flute. He didn't like all his operas. He thought some of them were kind of frivolous. But The Magic Flute was a very special opera. It was the people's opera. It had been performed in 1791 and was not just for the aristocrats, but the people came. And Beethoven was a great fan of the people, and he wanted to write music that could reach the masses and not just the wealthy. And so he took on 2 different variations. The first one we're going to do is from the end of the opera. It's Papageno singing Ein Mädchen or if I can say it right, Ein Mädchen oder Weibchen, a girlfriend or a wife, at which point Papageno, the birdman, has been sent to Sarastro's place and has undergone these trials and has made a wish to have some food and wine, and it miraculously appears, and he said, "Oh, well, maybe I could get me a girl, too." Now, what's fascinating, of course, is that Beethoven at this time was very much wanting a woman in his life, and we're going to see that all throughout his life. He fell in love with many different women, proposed to a couple of them, although it's debatable. The first one he proposed, supposedly as soon after he got to Vienna, was a singer named Magdalena Willmann. She turned him down, supposedly because he was ugly and half crazy, which was not nice. But he was always pursuing, and we're going to sort of look at some of these loves that he was after. He really wanted the ideal wife. And so it's no coincidence that both of the arias that he takes from this Mozart were about having a wife. This one having the girlfriend or wife, and the next one we'll do about the sanctity and the beauty of being married. Beethoven wanted this more than anything, although he never did get married, and perhaps he really didn't want it because he knew that it might get in the way of his composing as well. So he writes this piece in 1798, and what you're going to hear is already this incredibly inventive improviser in a sense, that he takes this tune, this very well-known tune that everybody knows as the theme, and even in the very first variation, which is a solo piano variation, he kind of disintegrates the whole theme. It sort of evaporates into the air, and then he has to bring it back together. So he's already playing with this. He writes 12 different variations, and towards the end, he actually writes 2 slow minor variations in a row, which was very rare. Usually you just go away and write one of those. But he does that, and then he concludes with this very fun, upbeat allegro, and shocks you again because you're expecting one of those big endings that Beethoven gives you, and he just fades away into the sunset. So this was a piece that was probably not often performed, was performed in salons, but it really shows the youthful, young style Beethoven in 1798. Here are the variations from the Ein Mädchen oder Weibchen. Good. So you can hear some of the humor in that as Beethoven was having fun, giving expectations, taking them away. Now, the next set of variations that he writes, also from the Magic Flute, is from the famous duet that Papageno sings with Pamina, Bei Männern welche Liebe fühlen. This is sung when Papageno helps Pamina escape the clutches of Monastatos and tells her that Tamino, the great prince, is in love with her and coming to save her, and she sings about how wonderful it is to be in love. Papageno, for his part, sings about how he can't even get a date and how difficult it is to do that, but they basically sort of agree that the best thing in life is love. It's through love alone that we live. Love sweetens every sorrow. Nothing nobler than a man and woman together. And again, there's this idea of being married, of being one in this noble place. And it is around this time that he writes this piece in 1801 that we know that Beethoven falls madly in love with a woman named Giulietta Guicciardi, who has become famous because he dedicates a wonderful sonata for piano, known as the Moonlight Sonata now, to her. And he writes back to his friend in Bonn, Franz Wegler, about her. I have a couple of these letters. I'm going to read one from June of 1800. In this one, he talks about the fact that he has begun to have this difficulty with his hearing and how difficult it is. He writes to Franz Wegler, "You desire to know something of my position here in Vienna. Well, it is by no means bad. My compositions are now very profitable, and I may really say that I have almost more commissions than it is possible for me to execute. I can have 6 or 7 publishers or more for every piece that I write, if I choose. They no longer bargain with me. I demand, and they pay." So you see, this is a very good thing. But then he says, "That malicious demon, however, bad health, has been a stumbling block in my path to success. My hearing during the last 3 years has become gradually worse. My ears are buzzing and ringing perpetually, day and night. I can with truth say that my life is very wretched. For nearly 2 years past, I have now avoided all society because I find it impossible to say to people, I am deaf. In any other profession, this might be more tolerable, but in mine, such a condition is truly frightful. Besides, what would my enemies say to this? And they are not few in number." He writes back a couple months later, though, with a little bit of an update on his life. He says, "I am now leading a somewhat more agreeable life. As of late, I have been associating more with other people. You could scarcely believe what a sad and dreary life mine has been for the last 2 years, my defective hearing everywhere pursuing me like a specter, making me fly from everyone and appear to be a misanthrope. But the change has been wrought by a lovely, fascinating girl, Guicciardi, who loves me and whom I love. I have once more had some blissful moments during the last 2 years, and it is the first time I ever felt that marriage could make me happy. Unluckily, she is not in my rank of life." Actually, he was not in her rank of life, but the way he said that was she was not going to go for him. She was from a noble background and ends up marrying a count a year later. But he said, "Indeed, at this moment, I can marry no one. I must first bestir myself actively in the world. Had it not been for my deafness, I would have traveled half around the globe by now, and this I should still do. For me, there is no pleasure so great as to promote and to pursue my art. And we're going to find out more about his love life tomorrow when I read about his immortal beloved. But suffice it to say that Beethoven went through a few of these different women. Nothing actually worked. And in fact, there's a very sad letter that he writes in 1810 after he's proposed marriage to yet another girl, Thérèse Melfate, who was 18 years old and he was 40. And the parents said, there's no way that's happening. And he realized that it was looking grim for him, and he says, writes a letter, I can therefore seek support now only in my own heart. There is none for me outside of it. No, nothing but wounds have come to me from the friendship and such kindred feelings. So be it then for you, poor Beethoven. There is no happiness in the outer world. You must create it in yourself. He writes this piece, though, in 1801, when he's sort of in the throes of hopes about Giulietta Guicciardi, and the variations are sort of, again, about being married, the nobility of that. This is only 7 variations in this one, but I think they're a little deeper, and again, sort of evaporating the melody that you hear, the very famous tune, and there's one gorgeous variation right in the middle, the minor variation, variation 4, which really is sort of Beethoven at his most expressive and beautiful. So here is the second set of variations he wrote on tunes from a Magic Flute. Thank you. All right, so we're now going to embark on this wonderful, wonderful work. Again, probably his most well-known cello sonata, and I think it's the first real sonata for this instrumentation where both parts are really equal, the dialogue, the conversation. And again, this comes about, written in 1808, and it's Opus 69. This was an incredible year, written in 1808. Opus 68 was his Sixth Symphony, the Pathétique Symphony, and Opus 70 were his trios, the Ghost Trio and the Archduke Trio. So he was in the middle of just an incredible phase where music was pouring out of him. He had just written the Fifth Symphony as well. In fact, there was a very famous concert that took place in December of 1808 in Vienna with all of Beethoven's music. That was where the Fifth Symphony and the Sixth Symphony were both premiered on the same concert, which also included his Fourth Piano Concerto and the Choral Fantasy and several parts of his Mass. The concert went on for over 4 hours in the middle of a very cold winter. And many commentators say, yes, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. But he was clearly just at a great moment in his life. But it only came about after he had spent the summer of 1802 in this little village called Heiligenstadt. We know now that while he was there, his deafness had really come, and he thought it was all over. And he actually contemplated, we think, killing himself at this time. And we have a letter that he wrote to his brothers that he apparently never sent, and many people think he sort of wanted history to read this letter, what we now call the Heiligenstadt Testament, where he sort of writes about all he's going through in his deafness and how he needs to now sort of find a new way to move on in life. I'll just read a little bit of it because it's so powerful. This is written in October of 1802. Dear brothers, for the last 6 years I have been afflicted with an incurable complaint, which has been made worse by incompetent doctors. From year to year, my hopes of being cured have gradually been shattered, and finally I have been forced to accept the prospect of a permanent infirmity. If at times I decided to ignore my infirmity, alas, how cruelly was I then driven back by the intensified sad experience of my poor hearing. Yet I could not bring myself to say to people, speak up, shout, because I am deaf. How could I possibly refer to the impairing of a sense which in me should be more perfectly developed than in other people? A sense which at one time I possessed in the greatest perfection, even to a degree of perfection such as assuredly few in my possession have ever or will ever possess. I cannot do it. So forgive me if you see me withdrawing for your company, which I used to enjoy. For me, there can be no relaxation in human society, no refined conversations, no mutual confidences. I must live quite alone and may creep out into society only as often as sheer necessity demands. I must live like an outcast. If I appear in company, I am overcome by a burning anxiety, a fear that I will run the risk of letting people notice my condition. How humiliated I have felt when somebody standing beside me heard the sound of a flute in the distance, and I heard nothing. Or somebody heard a shepherd sing, and again, I heard nothing. Such experiences almost made me despair, and I was on the point of putting an end to my life. The only thing that held me back was my art. For indeed, it seemed to me impossible to leave this world before I had produced all the works that I felt the urge to compose. So I have dragged on in this miserable existence, this truly miserable existence. So truly a powerful cry for help. But out of that came this incredible period from about 1803 to 1810 or so, beginning with the Eroica Symphony, which he sort of pours out of him in this time, the Appassionata Piano Sonata, the Waldstein Piano Sonata, what we call this middle phase, this heroic phase, where Beethoven basically seized fate by the throat, as he said, and said, I will not be held back by my deafness. And the sheer power of his music that takes place over this time, it's mind-boggling. And this is one of those pieces that he writes, although it is not a tragic piece at all. it's almost one of the happiest pieces that Mozart writes. It's so calm and serene. It has a lot of humor in it as well, but that was not uncommon. If we think about the Fifth Symphony, is that sort of fate, but he paired that with the Sixth Symphony about nature. This has a lot of the pastoral quality of the Sixth Symphony, which he was writing at the same time, and he used to love to walk out in nature. Now, he dedicates this piece to a very good friend of his who was an amateur cellist named Ignaz von Gleichenstein. And actually, on the inscription to the sonata that he sent to him, he writes in Latin, inter lacrimas et luctum, which means between tears and grief. So again, he's talking about what he's going through, but when you listen to this piece, you don't hear tears and grief. It's sort of what he's doing to get away from that, shining the light on the positive things that he's finding. Now, Gleichenstein was, I don't know if he actually played this piece. He was a good amateur cellist, but he was a very good friend to Beethoven. He had helped Beethoven actually find money from all the wealthy people in Vienna to help support him. And Beethoven was always indebted to Gleichenstein for doing this. So this is the piece that is, I think, the basis for a lot of other composers looked back at this as to how to write a sonata for cello and piano. Again, it's not an easy combination. The cello is a lower instrument and can often get stuck in overpowered by the piano. Beethoven really discreetly writes this piano part so the cello can shine through. You'll hear this wonderful first movement that again begins with this sort of searching motive in the cello, then the piano takes it on. We each get little cadenzas, and then we get this nice little dialogue together. The second movement is one of these fun scherzos or jokes, as Beethoven liked to do it. In that movement, you can almost not find the beat. Everything is off the beat, so it feels very off kilter. And Beethoven sort of enjoyed playing with our expectations of where we want the beat to be. The third movement opens with a very beautiful slow part, and it feels like it could be a whole slow movement unto itself. And it's too bad that it isn't, because it's so beautiful, but it only lasts about 12 measures. And then Beethoven decides, I'm done with that. I'm going to move on to another fast part to finish up this piece, filled with a lot of virtuoso part in the piano, but a wonderful, again, joyous coda to this. So please, I forgot to mention, whitehorselive.tips. Please help support your fellow musicians. Well, you're not fellow musicians, if you are a musician out there. The musicians and also Whitehorse and Radhouse Studios who make it all possible. And again, join us tomorrow when we go deeper into Beethoven to his last two sonatas, which are very out there. This one is going to feel very classical and easy to listen to. The ones tomorrow are not as easy, but they are really Beethoven pushing the edge of music to a point that even still today sounds modern. So we'll hope you join us at 3 o'clock so you can finish hearing what this great composer did with the cello and the piano. Here is the Sonata in A major, Opus 69. Thank you to everybody here in the audience. Thank you to Bob. Thank you to Roundhouse Studios. Hope you can join us tomorrow. Again, whitehorselive.tips to help us out. And join us tomorrow at 3 o'clock as we play Sonata number 4, Sonata number 5, as well as an early variations on a Handel theme. Thanks again to Franklin Keel. And for everybody here, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Franklin. Marvelous, just absolutely marvelous. So let's do something ridiculous again, right? When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, then the clouds roll away. Sisters, ain't you glad to feel that fear of fading? And brothers, ain't you glad? Gonna be a better day. People, ain't you glad that we are all in this together? And people, ain't you glad that the clouds are gonna roll away? When the song rises up, white horses will fill the mountains. When the song rises up, then the clouds roll away. Then the clouds roll away. Then the clouds roll away. All right.
Woo!
Thank you. One more thing. Thanks for joining us. Be with us if you can again tomorrow, as Dan said, at 3 o'clock for the final portion of Daniel and Franklin bringing the Beethoven. Some of you know we usually have a contest at this time called the Between the Cushions contest. But we're not going to do it this week, but keep feeling around in between the cushions of your couch. And don't throw anything away, unless it used to be alive and now it isn't. Or if it's a picture you just assume your significant other didn't come across. Oh, and you know what? COVID-19 has its good points. Think of all those great new products that have come along as a result of the pandemic. Remember the toilet paper shortage? Remember that? Well, somebody came up with, I forgot mine here, but somebody came up with the Texas toilet paper. It's about that big. Each sheet's about that big, about 1 foot by 1 foot. And it's a good idea. There's only one problem with it. Texans won't take crap from anybody. Sorry. Have a nice night. Bye now.
Thanks for joining us for White Horse Live. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and for those of you here in person, we sure hope you enjoyed being back at White Horse, and that we're with you for dozens more years to come. This program is produced by White Horse Black Mountain and by Radhouse Studio. Bob Hinkle is your host and executive producer. Claire Hoke is audio engineer. Jessica Wharton is director of photography. Jessica Fox is key grip and front of house engineer. Public relations services provided by Maggie Rainwater at Hoosier Devil. I'm Rebecca Hillgraves, director and producer for these programs. Thanks, as always, to Nathan Kirkley, who keeps things running smoothly behind the White Horse Bar, and to Craig Rumney, the Craigerator, who welcomes folks at the box office and keeps smiling no matter what. Join us tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock for the final installment in this special all-Beethoven miniseries from pianist Dr. Daniel Weiser and cellist Franklin Keel, right here on White Horse Live. In the meantime, be good to each other, and that includes all people.